Hey everybody, it's Mark from the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. We record live on Twitch every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time, bringing you all your DFFOO news and talk. We share that here on YouTube and on your favorite podcast apps. Go to tccpodcast.com for all the links to our social media and to join our Discord. Make sure you stop, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and ring the bell for notifications for videos like this and so much more. This is my April GL DFFOO tier list where I break down all the upcoming characters and tell you how I would suggest you spend your resources. Remember, think for yourself. And I'm going to provide links to all my favorite content creators in this video so that you can do your own research. But remember, we all have different places, we all have different rosters, but here is my advice, just generally, and then I'll go through kind of where I'm going to end up at the end of the month. But I'm going to break it down into a few categories, whether you should spend gems, tickets, do a 13-ticket challenge, that's kind of like a Hail Mary, or just leave the characters on the bench where they belong. Let's start with the Emperor. He is a magic damage dealer that relies on debuffs or traps. They trigger off-turn damage. Emperor is going to get a rework, which gives him high turn rate, which allows you to set up and chain traps more effectively. He also gets his LD boards, because remember, he's already had his LD. It's going to give him a double dump on his LD attack, and it's going to give him, on his buff, the ability not to drop to 0 Brave, which is going to help him a lot. He also gets a BT, which gives him another frame debuff, so you're dealing with a total of 5 buffs. 4 of them are framed, so he does not necessarily play well with other debuffers, but you can get around it if you are a skilled enough player. Generally speaking, where do I put Emperor? Emperor for me is a gem pull. He is an excellent character. He is doing great damage, and he is synergy on Divine Ramu boards, which you need full synergy to get the max amount of points to make your life and board farming much easier. So he is going to be nice. Besides having 2-week synergy, he's going to be great on those boards. So he's definitely a gem pull for me if you do not already have his LD. If you do, great. You can just LD board him and maybe pick up his BT along the way. That brings us to Celeste. Celeste is a magic tank in that she reduces magic damage taken to herself, brings magic attacks, reduces their damage. Now she's able to also take and mitigate some total brave damage from non-magic attacks, so that's really nice. Her rework gives her some healing and AoE taunt, which is a big improvement to her kit. Her LD gives you a trap that batteries and heals the party, which is awesome, providing off-turn damage. And of course, now she's able to enchant with ice and imperil that same element. I actually think Celeste is the prize of the month and a very, very powerful tank character. I would suggest pulling on all of the tanks. They're all always useful. They always have a lot of to bring to the game, and I think Celeste is going to find a lot of use. Ice is not one of those elements that is frequently shot out of battles, but the ability to absorb that magic damage is very, very good. That brings us to Aerith, everyone's favorite flower girl from Final Fantasy VII. She gets an LD, which is a party debuff, gives party debuff immunity, and gives a new debuff that allows her to have a follow-up attack with her LD buff. You'll use the LD and her EX and her HP attack. You will almost never use her skill 1 and skill 2 unless you need burst healing these days. So Aerith had this issue being a little clunky early on, and then when she got her EX, she was even more clunky, but then they fixed it with her EX Plus, made her a little bit more easier to use, and now she's kind of back into this clunky area. She also is a Cursed Arts character, which really relies on those double orange special arts, so which are harder to farm because there are more arts than most characters. So is she good? Yes. Is she a must-have? No. She's a little awkward to play, but she is a good healer and a good battery unit. So I would say if you already have her EX, throw some tickets and hopefully get her LD, and you'll find some use for her. I don't think you'll necessarily find her particularly useful for all content, and she is a little awkward to play. Eald'narche comes back with an LD. Later, Eald'narche will get a burst weapon, but not this time. He's just coming with his LD. Eald'narche is a broken character because he inflicts that powerful debuff, Terror, which shuts enemies down completely. You'll often see enemies, if you're not familiar with Eald'narche, that are immune to the Terror debuff because of how powerful Eald'narche is. So his LD doesn't give him a whole heck of a lot because he's one of those characters that already had a lot and just needed a little boost to make viable in the current era. So he gets just a little basically boost to his kit and not really anything else or anything new or anything particularly broken. So for me, Eald'narche is kind of a skip. I mean, if he's a favorite character, sure, pull on him. But I don't think he's going to bring anything new to the table. You can throw a few tickets if you want to just try to pick up his LD, but I think he's one that you can leave. You're not going to be hurt without him, and he's not really bringing anything new to the table. So if you've already used him, great. You can just kind of leave him where he is. If not, I think there are better characters to spend your resources on. Now that brings us to one of our GL first, Aranea. Aranea is the spinning queen, and she dominated GL for 6 months or so, being able to trash all content. When she came out in Japan, they were hyped, and a lot of people pulled for her, but unfortunately, she didn't get a whole bunch more than she already had, and so a lot of folks found her underwhelming. Aranea gets more spinning with her LT, a new overhead buff that gives a free skill and allows all of her attacks to re-break, which is pretty cool. But Aranea still has a huge buff upkeep issue and can be a little tricky to get maximum use out of. A lot of you already have her EX. If you do, I would suggest 13 tickets and hope you get lucky. If not, I think you can skip and be fine without her. Obviously, I think there are more characters to pull on this month that are a little bit more useful. That brings us to the next LDBT character, which is Ysh'tola. She gets a rework, which allows Stone to always do HP damage and battery the party. Medica now heals the party, real nice. Her LD rebreaks, gives her an overhead buff, which is not particularly exciting, and upgrades Brave and HP plus attacks. She does get a BT. Again, BTs for support characters are not super exciting, but she does lots of battery. Now, very truthfully, I think she could be the first 2-week synergy character that you don't bring to all content. She's not ideal for Boss Rush. She's not ideal for Trey's Lufania, and those are two things she's synergy on. So actually, for me, unless, again, she's a favorite, Ysh'tola is a ticket pull, not a gem pull. She is... She's not great. Yes, she does come back with a BT+, but at that point, are you going to use your BT+ for her or for other characters? A lot of people use their BT+ tokens in Japan real fast because they got a few up hand, and I think there might be some people regretting not being able to save them for the newer BT characters and instead using them on older, except for the exception of maybe Bart's. But yeah, I think she's one that you can ticket, throw some tickets at, and then kind of move on from there. Kuja, at the same time, will get his LD boards, and again, he doesn't really get a lot, and so if you already have Kuja, great, you can LD board him and use him. If you don't have Kuja, unless he's a favorite, I would just skip because he basically just gets 20% overflow with his LD boards, and that's pretty much all you needed. Serah, oh Lord, I know a lot of you love Serah. That's great. She is perhaps the worst LD character in the game. Her LD is garbage. Her kit is kind of garbage. And I've used Serah in every iteration, 35 era, EX plus era. Used her. She's great in that era. She just gets hosed in this era. She just gets nothing that really helps her. She's a cursed art character. She's no rework. It's probably the worst LD in the game. Even to this point in Japan, Serah's probably the worst LD in the game. She needs a major overhaul. Just even if she's a favorite, just skip and pretend she's not in the game. She's that bad. Trey Trey comes back. You know, Trey's like the Hawkeye of Final Fantasy DissidiaFFOO Omnia. He has arrows and they do various different things. He is mostly a ranged attacker with traps. His LD gives him more debuffs, more traps, more damage. Yeah, Trey's super fun to play, and he's kind of a cool character if you, if you like him and have him, great pull on him. But I kind of throw him in 13 tickets. If you get him, great. If not, yeah, you'll not live without him, or you will live without him. But at the end of the day, I'd put Trey in just kind of if you have a few extra tickets, throw him his way. Wakka. Oh, Lord, Wakka. Wakka's a gambling character for some reason in this game. He was in Final Fantasy X too, I guess. And so his kit is heavy RNG, and his LD is no different. His LD allows you to have one of 3 debuffs. They're all different. Some of them are better than others, but it's freaking RNG, and I don't got time for that in Lufania. Wakka needs to be just left behind, and maybe if they upgrade him sometime so it's not RNG, great. But until it is, you shouldn't be pulling on Wakka unless, again, he's your favorite. So that is my tier list for April. I would use gems on Emperor and Celeste, tickets on Aerith and Ysh'tola, maybe throw a few on Aranea and Trey if you already have their EXs, and then just leave Eald'narche, Kuja, and Serah and Wakka alone and save your resources. If you already have Emperor, then don't pull on Emperor. Maybe save some gems this month and don't go hot in with everything else. For me, I already have Emperor, so I'm going to be using gems on Celeste. Aranea is one of my favorites, always pull for favorites, so I will be using gems on Aranea, and I will be using tickets most likely on Aerith and Ysh'tola, and maybe Trey, depending on where I am left. Again, friends, think for yourself. Let me know what your plans are. Let me know if you disagree with me. Be polite, but realize this is just my opinion. I'm trying to help you as you craft what your plans are for the month. I think it's good to think 1 month at a time here in GL. Don't get obsessed with what's going on in JP. They are always living in the moment. After a couple months, you kind of have a better sense of what to do. And so this is based on a lot of what I've seen from the Japanese community, Japanese game playing community, but also my opinions on the characters and my research into them. Again, unless you already have his LD, I would consider gems on Emperor and Celeste, consider tickets on Aerith and Yish'tola, maybe a few extra on Aranea and Trey if you don't already have them, and just skip Eald'narche, Kuja, unless you already have him, Serah, and Wakka. Until Thursday, when we talk more about the Squex community stream, when we talk about all of the upcoming things, remember we get that Start Dash banner as well. We've already had it. No, it's upcoming by the time of this. Yeah, it's going to be upcoming here. And I already talked about that last month. So this has been Mark with the Crystal Chronicles, wishing you the best of luck in all of your polls. Always pull for favorites. Always think for yourself. Do your own research. But I hope this helps. Until next time, friends. Goodbye.